Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ball the Board Games. I'm Ball.
On board.
We're going to review Teotihuacan City of Gods Deluxe Master Set by...
Gaming company.
No, Board and Dice.
Board and Dice. Yeah, not a gaming company.
You have two of their games also already.
I forget. There's so many games, so many companies. I don't know.
I put them on the spot.
But yeah, so we're going to go through our normal process. Quick disclaimer up front. We played this with every module. When we played on stream, if you check out that YouTube video, we are going to review it with a few of the basic modules.
Yeah.
Having all 10 is a lot. You'll see that in our playthrough, which would alter our review. So we're going to review kind of as is if you just put in the base modules and not all the fancy extra boards or anything.
We did play it before that with some very basic ones as well. Pretty much the ones that we're going to be reviewing with, the ones you'll probably use every time. And we'll give you our thoughts at the end on what we think about the individual modules too, just as not like a full-on rating, but just kind of thoughts on if you're looking to test them out or not. But if this is your first Ball and Board Games review, or not your first, but one you haven't watched in a while, we have updated our rating system from a few rating systems ago to where we do rate this still over multiple categories, but there are only 4 categories we are rating these on. So storage, rulebook, design, and gameplay. In addition to those 4 categories, they are weighted. So storage is at 15%, the rulebook is at 25%, design is at 20%, and gameplay is at 40%, trying to make sure that they are weighted accurately to what we care about and hopefully what you, the community, cares about. So if you see some games in the past that got a must play that you think are not as good as this, that is exactly why. We are not going to go and redact other ratings though, because they benefited from our early ignorance. So what's up first?
Starting things off, storage. We got a box.
We do have a box. All right. So Teotihuacan City of the Gods Deluxe Master Set. There's a lot of game going on here. There's also a 5th player expansion included in here as well. And there's a lot of good things about the storage, and then there are a few bad things about this storage. So what you see right now, top down, is some of the bad. So right here at the very bottom, there's no separation in all these components. They literally just tell you how to stack them in here very specifically. But ultimately, if you tilt this any kind of way, they're going to get all mixed up and jumbled together, and it's kind of a pain to get these out of the box. But if we come over here, boop, right there, this is the better part of storage. These 2 trays that are right here that have the player components, that have all the resources, this you'll just have out on the table with you while you're playing to pull components out of there. This keeps all the individual player pieces neatly separated. Yes, it can be a pain to try and get them out. That doesn't really bother me as much. Got tops on them so they don't end up going everywhere for both of these. There's a top for this one as well. There's a spot right here for all the cards. Keeps them nice and safe. There aren't a lot of cards, but I like that they gave a specific spot. This I have a problem with a little bit as well. It's easy to put them in here, easier than the big box, and to keep things separated because they have a big tile and then a bunch of the small ones. But I still would have liked to have seen some sort of separation here so it would be easier to get them in and out in some sort of way instead of having to specifically put them in a very specific way. So, all in all, my storage for Teotihuacan is a 3.5 out of 5. Next.
All right. Yeah, so start with the big box here. I agree. I'm not going to double harp on these things. This here is a big well where all the bags go. So we have a bunch of bags over here of tiles. Those all sit into that spot. These actually just go on top. I agree totally. This is just a mess of extra components stuck in this little other well. You have a bunch of player boards and game boards that kind of just get stacked on the very top of this. And then, to Nick's point over here, we have 3 others that separate. Absolutely love the concept of this one. What I don't like necessarily, and this is a me thing, there's 5s and there's 1s. They get all mixed up. So the 5s are like thick, so you gotta like dig in for the 1s after a while. So it's kind of annoying. That's not really a storage issue, it's just kind of how they have it there.
It's a tactile feeling issue.
This here, the only thing I don't like about this is I wish this was 5 separate wells. Yeah. So I could take the well for the black player color, have it in front of me, dump it out, have my pieces, put it back together. Because here, the only way to get all the pieces out of your colors, you either have to dig it all out or like try to dump it in a certain way that only gets your color without tossing all the other colors out.
It's true.
So for storage, again, solid ability to stack it all together, have a bunch of tops for these boxes, which is great. But I agree, 3.5. Few little things, especially this big well, that's a problem.
Okay, everybody. Next, if you want to learn how to play the game, you've got to read the rule book. How do you think the rule book is?
So, slightly different than some other games. This rule book will have 4 components to it. There is a core rule book, there is a player aid, there is an appendix of a bunch of stuff, and then there's a modules book for all of the add-ins. So, let's just start from the top, and I'll just go to my view here. So the core rule book, right off the bat, great. Goes over, hey, here's all the components in the base game. Nicely lays them out, shows you what tiles go in what bags, everything great. Goes through to setup. Setup is very informative. There's a lot that goes on this game board, which we'll see when we talk about gameplay and design. And it goes through and numbers it very well to say, this is where this goes, this is where this goes. The only issue we have is with number 3. It's just worded a little weird, where we assumed tiles go on top of the tile spots of the same number, but that might not be the case. It might be just shuffle and randomly distribute them out. But then everything else in this rulebook, once you get to rules of play here and all of the main actions and what you do on your turn, it just goes through. I love how they put in parentheses the number of the board. So it'll be like, okay, board number 1, I find the 1 on the thing. 2, 3, and 4 all operate the same way. 5, etc. It is very paragraphy, but it's pretty straightforward. It goes through and like, okay, here's a bunch of examples. For construction, here's how it works. Boom, boom, boom. So this rule book overall is very solid. If you're playing the base game, or if you're playing with just, let's say, 1 module, everything is great.
Sorry.
So if you're playing with the base game or you're just playing with the base modules of adding obsidian, which is wild, it works very well. So the core rulebook, solid. Player aid, I hate. So the player aid here, eclipse scoring is awesome. 3 times a game, you go through the eclipse, and you'll know here what you're scoring. So I thoroughly like that I can see that as I'm playing the game, and I'll know coming at the end of that eclipse what's going to happen. And then they highlight in blue here the expansion and one of the modules to say if you're playing with this module, you can gain these points as well. Player turn to me is very vague. It does tell you what your actions are on the player turn, but there's a lot of other stuff like cost of dice and all of that where they put it on here. So it says, where's the one? Pay X times cacao, where X is the number of dice there, but it doesn't count the dice you're putting there. I wish there was an example on here that showed you exactly what the cost of dice was. Auxiliary actions, everything else, it's fine. My problem really is the back. This is all expansion stuff. I don't think this needs to be on this thing. First off, I hate how large the headers are. Obsidian, for example. That is a very large header for Obsidian, all to explain that this black thing is a wild resource. That's way too much space to explain one very simple concept. And that happens across these. So this here, if you need to understand how to play the expansions, it's in the module book. It should not be on the back. This whole back should be iconography. There's a lot of pictures and a lot of things in this game that you need to understand, which is partly in the appendix, but there should be all the basic iconography on the back of this player instead.
Yeah, I got one.
Yep. Modules book. Modules book goes over, again, all those expansions. So it goes through and it says, okay, here's module 1, module 2, module 3, and so on. There's 2 things I like about this, 2 things I don't like. What I do like, you can add different modules separately, and it explains each module independently. So in our case, we only added a few modules in. And it does tell you what modules, like what you have to do to like mix them. And it does clarify to say, okay, for this module number 4, it changes board number 7. So I thoroughly like how it's very clear what is changing on the game board. The 2 things I don't like, number 1, I want a components list in the front of this book. Each module has its own components list. So when you're going through and looking through the components, you don't know what half of them are because they're all spread out in different modules. I wish the front of this book just said, here's all the components for all the expansion module stuff. Because a lot of this gets mixed together. For example, we have Priest and Priestesses. Priest and Priestess tiles numbers 1 through 13. Well, then you go over here, and they'll be like, oh, here's another one. Based on this module, another priest or priestess tile. Well, they're all stuck in the game box in a well, so it's very confusing on which tiles are where, and you have to read every single module to know where the components are. The other thing I don't like is they seem to heavily rely on the appendix, where a lot of the time it'll explain the rules and then be like, for more information, go to the appendix. So, like, for example, season effect. This card does this. Refer to appendix for explanation. And, like, every single one of these has something similar, where it's just like, refer to appendix for a comprehensive list. And it's just like, they take the easy way out, where it's like, here's the generic overview, go to the appendix to find out what really is happening.
Little bitches.
Yeah. The final thing, appendix. Appendix goes through all of the tiles. Altar tiles, discovery tiles, major discovery tiles, or etc. In my opinion, I love that the priest and priestess tiles are here. Each priest and priestess has their own ability. This just expands and explains that ability. I love this section. For these, I don't think this needs to be in this book. Here you have, oh, this means 2 resources. Over here, there's going to be another one if we go over to starting resources. Hold on. As we go through all these pages, and this is why this is an issue. Season card, starting resources. Oh, this is how many cacao, how many wood, etc. It's just very, and this is like, oh, 4 cacao. I don't think any of these need to be in this book. These are simple enough to have as iconography on back of the player aid that shows blue, you can do a blue/red/green/ this means go up on the appropriate track. One very simple line. They made it 4 lines, and these are huge boxes. They made it for the visually impaired, it seems like. There's just too much in this book where we were flipping over and over and over to find the things we were looking for.
I'm pretty sure the visually impaired would be braille.
No, I didn't say blind, visually impaired. But again, I think priest and priestess tiles should be in this book. I think that royal tiles are fine in this book because these are one-time things that get placed at the beginning of the game. Anything that's mid-game, so all of the discovery tiles that are coming out time and time and time again, should be in your player aid. So you can easily reference it. Starting cards. These symbols are all associated to other things. Just have it in the player aid, unless it's something very specific. So, for me overall, I think they went way too far with how they try to explain things. It made it confusing, and it made adding some of the modules a little bit more difficult, knowing what cards to keep in, to take out, based on if you're doing this module with that module or whatnot. So, because of that, and it took us a while to go through and learn what all these symbols meant and everything, I give Rulebook a 2.5.
Oh, damn. Wow. All right. My turn. Where to start? Let's go in reverse order. How about that? All right. Are we there?
Yeah, I'm in front of you there.
Apple appendix. All right. So an appendix is always better to have than to not have. But the point of the appendix is to be able
Shakespearean.
Is to we just saw Hamlet last night, and I didn't realize that was a movie about William Shakespeare until the end when they said his name was William Shakespeare.
Yep. Oscar nominated too.
I know. I was like, wow, I'm dumb. So yes, it's good to have than to not have, for one. So I appreciate them putting it in here. I appreciate the separation, of course, of the different sections as well. But I agree that there are some things that are a little bit overdone that definitely aren't needed. This thing here for moving. They're trying to cover all the bases, of course, but primarily these areas especially, like you called out. The 2 of any resource. We know what that is. Very straightforward. Find a way to condense, because the problem becomes that the appendix becomes difficult to use, and the whole point is to make it easy to figure out what the tokens mean, and you're almost better off just inferring what the tokens mean than spending the time to try and look through this rule book to find exactly what they mean. And there are moments in here where the explanation of even some of the shamans and priestesses and stuff, they are still a little hard to understand. It's not to kind of intuit what they mean. For the most part, they're clear. But the appendix is okay. But again, it's better to have than to not have. The modules, I'm glad they have a separate book for the modules instead of trying to cram it all into one area. My issue with the module is going to be my same issue with the main rulebook, is that it's very wordy. The diagrams, there are some, but not where you want them to be and what you need them for.
Technically, none of those are diagrams. Those are all just
This is a diagram.
That one, but all the rest here are all just pictures of the components. They don't actually show anything, how to use them. It just shows what the components are.
What we needed with the modules was diagrams on exactly how to set things up to make it a little bit easier so we didn't have to, again, infer. Because if we wanted to jump right into using modules after not like the first time playing the game, we would have no idea what any of this means or where to put it. So it'd be very, very difficult. So again, there's parts that are good about this and parts that are not. The main rulebook here, again, for the most part, very good. Diagrams like this, excellent, wonderful. But then throughout the rulebook, there are spotty areas where you wish they had a diagram where they don't have one, or where there needed to be clarification where there isn't clarification, or where the wording is slightly confusing, so you assume it means one thing, but as you play, you realize it means something else. So the rulebook needed a little bit more refinement regarding the clarity of what's being said. I don't know if this was translated. It doesn't seem like it's translated from a different language at all, but I also don't know. If it's translated, good job, because it's better than a lot of the translated rulebooks that we've seen. But there's definitely some spottiness in here that created confusion and slowed down the game and made it hard to learn at first. We actually had to argue back and forth on what things meant. And it came down. Well, it came down to, I think, where a comma was placed or a period was placed, separating two things.
Yeah.
So, clarity is good. When it comes to the player aid, I actually do not have an issue with this player aid whatsoever. This was very helpful to me. It says on your turn, you can either unlock everything for free, or you do one of these things. Auxiliary actions means free actions that you can, at any time, do that as well. Worker Ascension. When you ascend, this right here. We actually messed up Ascension in our first playthrough of this off camera, and if we would have actually read this, which is how I figured out we were messing it up, then we would have done it properly. So that's great for me as well. The Eclipse scoring is definitely the most helpful thing on here to keep track of all the scoring. Magnificent, in order of how you do it, right down the line. Just a comment on your X thing. It says right down the bottom what X means right there.
I just didn't read it then.
Yeah, that's part of the
I
problem.
wanted to change my score.
Yeah. And then game end as well is right there. I like to say down here, flip for playing with modules on the backside. So what this is to me, and how I interpreted this and why I find this helpful, is just the important things you need to know about the modules, the things that are different about them specifically that you may have continuing questions about while playing. So I think this actually is very helpful. When it comes to the iconography, I don't think they needed anything for the iconography, which is why I think the appendix is a little heavy-handed, because the iconography is easy to learn, and like any game, you just have to learn what it means. So I don't think they needed a whole separate thing specifically for that. They could have put it on the back of the rulebook. Did they? I don't think they did. Yeah. No. They could have put it on the back of the rulebook. That would have been helpful to have that. But I think that this is very helpful here on the back of this, because once you learn the iconography, you're not going to have to really refer back to it. So my score for rulebook is a 3.5 out of 5. Because it was okay. There's a lot of good. You kind of balance out. A lot of good, a lot of bad. The 3.5 is in our just okay range.
So next up in our rating system here is design. So as you can see here, we have the design set up with the modules regarding obsidian, which is the wild resource, as well as a few other basic ones. And we'll talk through how everything looks, how it feels, how it flows.
Yeah. All right. So design overall, I love. I love that this feels like you are in Teotihuacan and you are traveling around that pyramid. And I like the whole concept of like building it, like how this is in the middle. The iconography, I like that it's very stylized and almost cartoony. I think that's wonderful. I like that everything relates to the different gods and like that kind of worshiping situation. I like that they have areas on here that go over how to do certain things, like the endgame scoring. I'll come back to that. The Ascension as well. Come back to that as well in a moment. I think the boards are super clear to understand how to use these. This number, so you have a 2, there's 1 die, you get that. I think that is very straightforward, and it's easy to work those individual tables that are across the board. I like the temple situation over here, the look of that, and going up the temple. The tokens as well, so part of design is the components. The upgraded have these acrylic, actually I think they're wooden, they're painted wood, tokens, which are very clear, they're very tactile, they're fun to take out. I like the different pieces are different sizes as well, so it's easy to tell. Everything has a bag that it goes in. The bags are all different colors, so it's easy to know which bag to go to get things. You don't have to take a second like look in there to figure out what you need. These pyramid pieces are also, I think, this is the highlight for me of this game, and actually what convinced me to get this, is this puzzle of a pyramid, which I still haven't really taken the time during our gameplay to really explore and try to actively build. But I like that puzzle to where there's supposed to be 3 more pieces out here. You have your pieces on the side. When you do this action, you have this. And you're trying to figure out where to put it based on where you can. So typically you have to build the bottom first to allow spaces like this here to put this piece down. And when you put it down, you're trying to match symbol to symbol to get points. So like if I put this here, I would get 3 points. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so I like this whole design idea of building this pyramid, and I like that these are the chunkiest pieces to do so. My issue with the design is where they tried to be helpful, but they missed some steps in being helpful. So first of all, I'll talk about this area right here. So this here is, oh, it's fine. I'll just make sure that was on camera.
Yeah,
this here is when the eclipse happens. Sure, it tells you what to do when the eclipse happens, but it's kind of jumbled, all shoved in this one tiny spot. It almost makes the eclipse more confusing in that spot. I would prefer they left this off and just kept it on the player aid, because this can be confusing. What they missed the mark on as well is ascension. So when you ascend, you have, it happens when your piece becomes a 6. Great, so if this became a 6, cool. Where's my 6? Jesus Christ, fancy symbol. It's there, right? And you get to choose one of these benefits, okay? And then it becomes a 1, and it goes to 1. Cool. What's not on here, and what we missed the first time we played, is that you also go up this track right there. You also go up this track right there. Missed both of those things when we were playing the first time because it's not anywhere here with the ascension thing. We kept looking here like, okay, when I ascend, I can do one of these things. And so we kept ascending and ascending and ascending and not moving these tracks, and we were just banking in on resources. So it's helpful, but not entirely. So either leave it off or do it all. And they didn't. Same thing goes for building a pyramid, either these decorations or the pieces. So yes, it has the pyramid symbol on there, correct, but that just is associated with the pyramid. Nowhere does it say to go up on this track when you do it, except for in the rule book. So they could have easily had this symbol with an up arrow or a forward arrow, something like that, to remind you that, oh, I go up on this track whenever I do this. Something else that we missed a couple times in our original playthrough because of the lack of iconography. We started relying on the iconography on the board to remind us of how to do things, and that actually hurt us. So that's my only negative about design. Everything else I absolutely enjoy. I like that the workers are dice. I think that's a lot of fun. It's very just kind of simple to understand and easy to get into and play. So my design score is a 4.5 out of 5. That mark that got missed is purely because of the areas that they tried to help and missed the mark, or they didn't try to help at all.
All right. So for me, with the game board, I pretty much agree across the board. Yeah. So the tiles look really cool. I like that the dice are workers. I like that.
Forgot about the resources.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there.
Okay.
I like that these boards are very clear. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna talk about other things I don't like about how the board works in the gameplay, but the boards are clear on the iconography for most of this. To his point, the pyramid we did miss multiple times, which it wasn't super clear on. Yes, this symbol is there, but it also is the pyramid symbol. Everything else on the board is great. What I don't like in the design of the game board itself is if you are playing with a bunch of modules, this will become very, very cluttered. You would add in shaman cards in these 4 sections here. You add in a deck of cards here. You add in tiles there. You add in other stuff. So it just becomes a lot on the board. So there's things everywhere. The issue with that is, we're going to take this example here. Let's say I'm here. There's just dice. And let's say that Nick is locked in over here. Well, this die is locked in. This doesn't count towards the cost on the tile. But you have all these dice here that do, and let's say I move this die in. It's just too much on the board. I wish there was a section next to the board where the dice would go to say I'm doing this action versus this die here for that action.
Or small
and we
dice.
could do it here, or small dice. But we could do it there, and we could do it off to the side if there wasn't a shaman expansion in the game, or that the shamans were there. So that to me was just a bad design function where there's just too much put on this board, and it starts covering things up and making it confusing on what is where. I wish this here was actually like a little slot. So there's a slot on your player board, so I'll go to it right now. Right here where this die sits. That should be on the player boards, or the game boards as well. That if you're locked in, you're in that slot. It'd be very simple to do. So that's one issue I have with how it functions. For the player board, I know they added a bunch of stuff here. So like this is empty right now because that's for expansions. This whole bottom line's expansions. So I do like that that's available for you. So if you play with certain modules, you're not playing separate player boards. So I do like that. These here have little things that'll go in. I like that. The resources are very clear on what the resources are, and they're designed slightly differently. So you have little bricks, you have gold pieces, you have the cacao, and they come in 5s or 1s. You have the obsidian. So I like how that is, and you have a section right in the middle of your player board to easily see what you have. You have this for masks. So as you earn masks, you just stack them up here. And then any other tile you were to earn, it just goes off to the side of your game board, which is fine. Then you can just flip it upside down when you've used it. No problem. This here I think is pointless. There's a first player and a last player marker. They mostly do that to indicate direction of play. I'll talk about that more in gameplay, but I just don't like how they built that, and I don't think that this is necessary on your player board. I think it would just be a little token for first player only off to the side. But overall, I'll agree with your score at a 4.5 for design.
All right. Just to note that I didn't get to say it. I really like the resources in this a lot. I like that wooden with the painted artwork on it. I think that is becoming more popular, as it should. Okay, so the last category in our reviews is the biggest piece of pie, gameplay.
Yeah, so the basic overview of the game is you play 3 eclipses. So this tile will move here, you finish a round, it triggers an eclipse, it goes back, you do it 3 times. That is the premise of the game. You earn VP doing a bunch of different things. You have resources that you can gain. You're building the pyramid. You're adding decorations to the pyramid. You're going up the Avenue of the Dead by building buildings. You have temple tracks off to this hand side over here. So there's just a bunch of boards. You have resource on your player board you're utilizing. So it's action selection, resource management. You play 3 eclipses. Whoever's the most VP wins is the base overview of the game. The things I like about it. I like that there isn't, now that we read the rulebook correctly, assuming that this is correct, there isn't just one way to set this up. We assume that other than boards 1 and 8, the others can get rotated. So you shuffle them up and you deal them out. That's fun. So you're not playing the exact same game every time. I like that there's different tiles here that you can gain as you progress throughout the game to help give you benefits doing different things. There's tiles up on the top board as well on the track that you can gain. So all of these blue tiles you can gain and gain different benefits. So you can combo a few things together. I like that they added obsidian as a wild resource. That's just a fun add-in. So you can do your resource management a little differently. If too many people are on one board and you're like, oh, I really need wood. Well, you can go over there and get obsidian, and obsidian equals wood.
Yep.
So I do like that. I like on board number 1 how you have these 3 worship spaces where they're different than how you worship elsewhere, and you can lock it in and gain. So like, for example, Right here, if Nick was there, I have a little token down, I would gain a benefit even though he's on the spot. Mm-hmm. So I thoroughly like how there's a bunch of different things going on. Things I don't like. First, in the description of this game, it talks all about the Pyramid of the Sun, which is the pyramid in the center of this game board. There is no push in this game to force players to build this pyramid, which I absolutely hate. If the pyramid is the center point of this game, that should be there should be some requirement that in order to be able to win this game, you have to work to build the pyramid. That should be the end game. That should be the only end game, in my opinion.
You're communist.
Is to build the pyramid to the top, where you have to work together across all people to do it, but each player earns points. But like that should be the focal point, where maybe there's mid-game scoring with this Eclipse system, but the end game is you've built the pyramid. Additionally, same thing with the decorations. There's no push to do that either, but that really doesn't matter as much to me than the actual building of the pyramid.
Yeah, it's decoration.
Yeah. The push in this game, which we found out, is this temple track over here. Mm-hmm. So there's 3, there's a 4th you can add in with a module. If you don't go up this temple track and force yourself on kind of all of them, but at least 2 of the 3, you're not going to win the game.
No way.
You have to focus on that more than focus on building the pyramid. The pyramid could help you on the temple track, but there's so many other ways to go up those tracks. And there's so much VP to earn here. There's boosted VP here. There's VP on the top. There's VP everywhere. That's how you win the game, is by going up these temple tracks, which thoroughly changed our strategy in the game, where people were just kind of doing different things to earn VP, which to me takes away the point of the game, what the point of the game should have been. The other thing I don't like, which I know Nick will probably talk about as well, is how these dice work on the boards. Right now I have 2 dice, a 1 and a 3. So I go here, okay, that's the 2 die section. And perfect, we're zooming right here so you can see it. I'd be like, oh, cool, I have 2 dice. Oh, there's a 3, I get this. Nope, it goes by the lowest die you have there. And I get 1 wood only. So I'm like, okay, I could have 1 die that's a 3 and get 1 wood. But I brought another die here. I had to pay a cacao to bring another die here. And all I got was a wood. So I just don't like how they balance this. We talked about it in our playthrough, or after the playthrough, that there should be like a summation. Like, oh, you add these 2 together and, okay, that's 4. So this could be like 1 to 2, 3 to 6, and then so on higher, based on the dice added together. I also don't like on these things where here I can upgrade my dice. So I can make the 1 into a 2 and so on. If you go to this spot and go up the temple track, or let's say you only wanted this blue, there was a mask there. So for example, this mask was there. And I'm like, ooh, I don't have the cacao, but I have an extra wood. I'm going to go here, I'm going to get this mask. This is going to give me a victory point, or multiple victory points potentially. So I pay the wood, I get the thing. My die doesn't move there. Not only does it not go up, it's stuck, locked into that position until another player knocks you out, or you pay or skip a turn to take it out. So I just think there's an unbalance here. We're like, oh yeah, I can get a bunch of resources and increase my dice, which is what you have to do in the game. But if you want to go up the temple tracks, you're kind of stuck. So I didn't like the balance on how a lot of those worked. I'll keep it short and sweet today. I think that's mostly it. That's pretty much the game again. My main concern is I like the fact that this should have been building a pyramid. Or
yeah.
No, I dislike the fact that it should have been building a pyramid and it wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about the modules afterwards.
Yeah.
So my gameplay score with just how it looks here is a 3.5.
Okay. Alrighty, folks. My turn. Okay. So, first and foremost, I think this game is incredibly fun. Just moving the dice around, trying to strategically figure out where to put them to get resources to do things is a blast. If you like worker placement, if you like resource management, any kind of like Euro-style game, you will most likely really enjoy this game. I really like that this sun movement can, like when we figured it out, is moved by ascending. So you could force this up faster than it would typically go and screw over your opponents. I think that is phenomenal. I didn't mind. I don't mind all the dice being on the board. I do think that it'd be nice if they were smaller dice, so they did not clutter as much. I think that was in your design thing. I had that in a gameplay thing for mine. Putting them on the board just randomly. There's no specific spot to put them, so having a spot would have been great. I like that there are different avenues potentially to win the game. I like that there is, okay, you could focus on the pyramid. Just go gung-ho, build the pyramid. Do it. Crank up this track, and it's going to force other players to try and catch up potentially, because you're going to get, if you go up this track early on in the game, you're going to get a bunch of points. I liken it to Castles of Burgundy, where if you finish off one of your sections early in the game, you just bank in on points for your area and the bonus on the side. So it's not something that I did. Next time we play, I probably would focus more so on building this pyramid to see how that works. So I think that is great. I like that you can also do this like Valley of the Dead thing, because you're getting points not only for putting the houses down, but also for advancing your person up this track here as well. I mean, those are the main ways you're getting points in the game, honestly. Other than the auxiliary stuff around kind of the sides. I like that you can collect masks as well to slowly gain points, and the different masks give you more and more points. As a strategy alone, or a requirement, as you'll see in the playthrough that I had, it's not a great strategy to win by just focusing on masks, or only be able to focus on masks. So that kind of sucks. But all the extra bonus tiles, if you can use them, are a great way to get an edge. It's a great way to combo, to say, okay, I'm going to collect this tile to then use it when I want to do this thing and blah, 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 boom. And so if you pair that with going up the temple track and then using a tile, and then the spot you got onto the track got you another tile or something else, you can just kind of keep going like that and really crank ahead. Those moments feel really good. I like that other players' dice influence resources like cacao you can get at places, or how much it costs to go to a place. I think that was a really smart thing to do as well. Now, I agree with the temple situation, to where I wish this was more of a thing to do, or at least maybe not a requirement to do, but you got endgame points for doing it. So instead of having one bag
of each player,
where you have this and then you put it out, I wish each player had their own bag of tiles, to where you randomly drew in from the bag, and then you had to put that out in some way to get points. So you get points when you put it down, and then at the end of the game, you get points for however many you put down. So that incentivizes you to put more and more down to build this pyramid, which would push that end game. One of the ways this game ends is if this pyramid gets built. So that would have been a great way to incentivize that. I agree, the decorations, I think, are okay the way they are, because they're decorations. Put them on, they're all colored for the most part, so you're going to get extra bonuses up that track. I don't mind the locking of the die, honestly, because that balances out a little bit the movement on the tracks for worshiping. Because, yes, you get this, you get the big bonus for going up the track to worship, but then you're locked in here. And so that balances that out. So if you want to just shoot up those tracks, you're going to have to constantly lock your dice in, but then you're going to have to pay money to take them all out, or skip a turn to take them all out.
I'm fine with the locking in of like the top thing.
Yeah.
But if I went here to be like, okay, I need resources. I went here, I had 1 cacao and 1 gold to be able to get 4 cacao. Well, now my die is locked in, and I have to pay 3 cacao to get that die out.
Yeah.
So I wish like the getting of the blue token was free, and that was unlocked.
That's what I was going to say.
That was locked.
That's what I was going to say. Is I wish that the locking was only for that movement, because that is balanced to me.
Yeah.
I wish that getting this down here was just another action on this board. So like you can either put your die here and do one of these, or you can put your die here and get the token. But if you do that, you'll have to still pay your cacao. Instead of having this cost cacao, it's going to be whoever's there, cost cacao plus the cost of the tile there. So I think that would have been a little bit better for that. When it comes to the dice going on the board and the combination, there's 2 things I think that would have made this better. One, yes, the summation. So 3 and 1 is 4. Boom. I am right here. I can get this because I have 4 in total and 2 dice. That would have been significantly better. You don't need to go over 5. I think if you end up over 5, then cool. You get what's in that row for 5. So then your incentive becomes not necessarily the total, but getting 3 there, so you can at least get 5 in this row.
Yeah.
I think that would have felt a lot better. Or it's whatever die was previously there, potentially. one or the other. Either whatever die was previously there or whichever die you're moving there now, influencing what that is. So instead of going by the lowest die all the time, so like if I had a 1 there and I moved a 3 there, now we shift down to 2 and the new die is a 3, so we go to 3. I think that is more intuitive because I kept trying to do that when we first played a couple times. And I think it just makes more sense. It would also be easier than trying to do addition. It takes one step away from people who are mathematically challenged. So just 3, 2, boom.
That's a personal problem.
Right there. I would not have a problem. But, if you're playing with this like with a young kid, it makes it easier for like a young kid who's not good at math.
Teach them math.
I really like this area over here too. This is actually one of my favorite things, that you can get these tiles which give you those bonuses throughout the game. And if you get there first, if someone else tries to go and get there, they're essentially learning from you, giving you 3 additional VP. So I have very few gripes with this game, with the way that it plays, other than, force us or give us an incentive, not even force us, give us an incentive to build this temple more so than what's already there. And then change up the way that the dice work. Really are my main critiques about this. Because other than that, like both times that we played, I had so much fun each time with the resource manager. What am I going to do? Trying to outthink your opponent. Okay, where are they going to push me? The shaman stuff, which we'll comment, it's not part of my rating for this. But I like the shaman edition because you can try to position your shaman to where I can either move to this spot, which will help me out, or someone could bump me. There's one time where board bumped me to a spot, which put me in position to take that next move, which to unlock all my dice in that move with them. There's a caveat with the shamans that I wish were a thing, which we'll talk about when we talk about the modules. But for this, I give this a 4.5 out of 5. I think it's significantly fun, and I only have those 2 issues with it that I honestly just think would make it better. I don't think the game really suffers that much for not having them.
All right, so now we will go over our 4 categories, our Baldwin board combined score for those. After we give you the final score for Teotihuacan, City of the Gods, we will then talk about the modules.
There are our scores. Okay. Starting off with storage, once again, I gave it a 3.5. Board gave it a 3.5, which means Baldwin board gives it a 3.5. Storage, they definitely thought about how to get everything into one box. With the 5th player expansion included, there's a lot of modules. It all fits in the one box, which is amazing. And it is easy to get out onto the table. There's just that slight problem of that bottom tray and this little one here, but mainly the bottom one, where it's kind of a pain to put things away and take them out of that section because it's just a well filled with stuff.
Yep. Next up, we have Rulebook. Ball gave this a 3.5. I gave it a 2.5. Bald and Board Games merges that in the center at a 3. Our shared concerns were very wordy, can cause unnecessary confusion with different things and understanding what the rules are telling you. I had an issue with the appendix as well as the player aid. And then you have the modules book, which also, again, is wordy. There's just a lot of things to consider, which if you don't understand it the first time, like we didn't, it makes it harder to play.
Yeah.
Or play wrong.
It's true. Next up is design. I gave it a 4.5. Board gave it a 4.5, so Baldwin Board Games gives it a 4.5. They definitely took the time to really design this into the realm that you're playing in. The tokens feel deluxe and chunky. Despite having to learn the iconography, all the iconography is very, very clear. The one thing that held it back are the few things that they didn't reference on the board, or the things that they only referenced partially, that actually created confusion instead of helping us.
And the final category was gameplay. Bald gave this a 4.5. I gave it a 3.5. Again, that gets merged right to a 4. It is a very fun game to play. If you're considering the base game or maybe just a few modules like the Obsidian, it's a fun game to play. There's a lot of different things to think of, different strategies, ways to move your dice and collect resources and everything. Our main common concern was building the pyramid is not a focal point of the game. Where it probably should be, since it's a Teotihuacan game, an Aztecian game.
And it's one of the end game conditions.
That as well, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, combined score. So all 4 categories together independently. So as board, I give Teotihuacan City of the Gods a 3 out of 5. So good game overall. Thoroughly liked it. It's just missing a few things.
Yeah. And I gave Teotihuacan City of the Gods, the Deluxe Master Set, a 4 out of 5. I said, have a lot of fun playing with it.
Wow.
Whoa.
I'm not touching this game again.
Had a lot of fun playing it. But there are some things that make it hard to learn and hard to remember what to do, or just areas they missed that could have made it even more fun to play.
So, overall, we take each of those categories. We have the ball and board game score. We, based on our weighting system, average those out to get a score out of 5. Yep. So, Teotihuacan City of the Gods, Deluxe Master Set, gets a score from Ball and Board Games of a 3.5 out of 5.
And that makes Teotihuacan City of the Gods Deluxe Master Set by Board and Dice a Ball and Board Games just okay. So, just okay does not mean bad. We have a don't play for that score. But it doesn't mean that you absolutely have to get it and you should have it in your collection. That is the must play score. It is the score that's in between that, where if you're interested, if you like worker placement, if you like resource management, then you will most likely like Teotihuacan City of the Gods, the Deluxe Master Set, or the base version, honestly, whichever you prefer. So, just okay for us puts it right there. Like, if you want to check it out, definitely check it out, but we're not going to tell you that you have to check it out.
Yes. And then, as we stated, we'll go over some of the modules, or all of the modules, and just give a sentence or two of our thoughts on those modules. Some are very straightforward. Some are a little bit more complex. So again, the modules book goes through, first it goes through some variant rules, which, phenomenal. Starting card drafts, the main one. We did that. It's in 1,000 other games. We don't really need to comment on a draft.
It's drafting.
It's just drafting, yeah. For the first module itself is the Priest and Priestesses. So there's a whole stack of cards here. Yep. You would randomly deal them out. You deal 2 to each player. They choose one to incorporate on their player board, which gives you a ability, and some of them give you a disability. That's not... Wow. What's the opposite of ability? Consequence. There we go.
Give you a handicap.
Handicap. That's the same thing.
That's a technical term, though, for like games.
I was thinking the opposite of ability.
You're not wrong.
Consequence. My thoughts on it are...
You can collect as much obsidian as you want, but you can no longer pronounce S's.
My thoughts on this module are... There are multiple priests and priestesses that are very simple. They're like, hey, you can use wood as wild, maybe. I don't know. They're very simple things to understand.
Yeah.
There's others that are very in-depth. So, for example, we had Priest of Death was one of my options. Mm-hmm. You had whatever.
I Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, Quetzalcoatl. There we go. Mm-hmm. Where... some of them seem a little either OP or unbalanced, where in our game, Aaron's only negative was he couldn't have a 4th worker. His positive was okay, but his negative was barely anything, where both of us had a significant benefit, but also disadvantage. Well, yeah, so it kind of put us behind the 8 ball. We're like, we are going to suffer.
Yeah, like I got extra points for collecting mass tokens, but I couldn't collect any other tokens, which... significantly cuts you off at the legs for a lot of this game's comboing abilities. And there was almost no way that I was going to be able to win. I'm like, we're not going to tell you who won because you can go watch the playthrough. I mean, watch it or watch the playthrough. But it wasn't me.
Yeah. And my character I had was I could move an extra space every turn, but I could never pay the cost to unlock my workers.
Yeah.
So I had to skip a turn anytime I wanted to unlock workers, which just makes it you not want to do the action that locks your worker.
Which is how you go up the temple track.
Exactly.
So again, can hurt your chances of winning the game as well. Because as we found out, that right now the way the game is made, you have to focus on that temple track. So like what they did there is what they should have done with a pyramid. Is where you have to focus on the pyramid. Yeah. You have to build a pyramid. Because if you get to the top of the temple tracks, the game doesn't end. Despite the slightly unbalanced nature of a lot of the priests and priestesses, I like that they do have those as a module to create some asymmetry and to force you to change up how you're playing your game, to experiment with that. I do think that you should take the time and read through them all and probably sort them out. So that way you have these priests and priestesses together that are those ones that are more difficult to play as with the ones that are easier to play as. That way everyone's on the same level as they're trying to use.
Yes.
Yeah.
Second module is called Height of Development. It adds an extra temple board. So there's an orange temple board. It comes with a bunch of its own tokens that you can collect and utilize. It also comes with a board replacement, obviously, on the game board. I thoroughly like this one.
Yeah.
It's the static thing. So if we go over here, it just adds an orange board over here that each have their own equivalent of these tiles that you get, but they're passive, so you get them across the game.
Yep.
So great add-in. Again, read through them to make sure you understand what the tiles are doing, but something that was pretty simple.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that one at all. I think it's a lot of fun to have a fourth track to try and pay attention to. And it kind of balances out just trying to fly up the other three, especially because the benefits on that track are great. Those passive abilities, and you can't get them all either. Often you have to choose one of the two or two of the three as you're moving up that track to be able to keep, and you can only have 5 in total. So, yeah, I think it was great. It definitely can add to the strategy and the gameplay, the comboing, all of that, if you try and run up that track early, potentially.
Yeah. Module number 3 is called Seasons of Progress.
Hate this.
Yeah, I absolutely hate this module. So they give you 9 season cards. So you shuffle the cards, you place them down. At the beginning of the game, you flip one. For that whole eclipse cycle, you use that season, and then you flip a second one 3 times. In my opinion, on a table card, especially something called seasons, there should be seasons, positive and negative. Winter's bad, summer's good. In the middle is okay. Or summer's nothing because it's grayed out, whatever. This game does not do that. All 9 cards are positive. So, again, because if you add in the priests and priestesses, these season cards may benefit one player unfairly towards others. Where I'm like, I wish there was just a negative to say, oh, if you go up the temple track, pay an extra resource. But it was just like, hey, you can pay 2 resources and go up twice every time.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who is able to lock their dice in and keep going up temple tracks, you're just flying up these tracks.
Yeah. I like the idea of the seasons cards. I don't mind them being positive, but I agree. They definitely need some negatives in there. And I also think, like, you're going from, like, one eclipse to the next. There isn't an eclipse every season as far as I know. So,
No.
it would have been nice is, like,
yeah.
if at the 6, right? Or the 5 or the 6 marker, in that passing, a new season card was flipped. So you're getting 2 season cards every single eclipse. So halfway through that larger round, it could completely flip your entire game.
Yeah.
Like, you could have a benefit for the first 5, and then that also allows someone to, like, you know what, I'm going to force the Ascension to force the new card because somebody's relying too much on that season card. And then a negative one comes out, and you're like, fuck yeah. So that would have made, again, seasons much, much better.
Yep. The next few modules are very straightforward. So module number 4, Architecture, it just changes the 7th board. Instead of using what's on the board, which is just, hey, you get to do the same thing every time, it adds the dice structure.
Which is the one we actually had on the table.
Which is the one we have on the table.
Yeah.
So very straightforward. I think that should always be added in.
No, I completely agree. It makes you... I think all of the individual boards are better when you have that dice. Despite our issues with the way that they utilize the dice to determine the cell you end up taking items from in that table, I think that it is better to have the table as opposed to not. It creates some more variety and some more strategic focus.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with modules 5 and 6. So module 5 changes board number 8. Module 6 changes boards 2, 3, and 4 and adds the obsidian. So again, it's pretty same comments. It's great to have in.
Yep.
It doesn't complicate things. It just keeps a little bit more variety.
Yep.
Board number 7.
Or the variant you skipped is the... just adding
that's obsidian.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I saw the resource
No, we're not there
cards.
yet. For the one you're thinking of.
Yep.
Module 7 is the mansion board. It just changes the number 1 board again to use tiles instead of the static what's on the game board.
Yep. Also the one we had out. It's the one that incorporates those small tokens to where when you reach a certain point in the track, you get to put your token down where you can benefit if somebody goes to worship at that area. So literally that's all it adds, really, is just that additional worship portion You can always use the tiles for randomness, but you're really missing out if you don't have that little marker, because that also forces people to want to run up those tracks to get to that point first.
Yeah.
What was funny is in our playthrough, which you'll see, is Board kept on using the fact that Basic had his tokens down to force him to flip his dice to higher levels.
Yeah.
Which is another way it can be used. So
True.
Yep.
The last two are actually major module changes and things to add in. So first, module 8 is altars and shamans. So that is using an extra piece out of your player box, which is a shaman, and there's 4, extra tiles that go down on the board, where, as Nick mentioned kind of in the gameplay, they allow you to do different things. I don't mind this. I just don't think I would want to add in module 9, which we'll talk about in a minute, or the orange board if we're adding shamans in. I just think it's too much.
Yeah, I liked the shaman idea of it for the most part. So I like having those little pieces. I like if there's a spot specifically for them. It's only 4 little tokens on the board. I like there's only 2 things you can do on each board with the shaman. I don't know why they made it go counterclockwise.
Yeah, I hate that.
I think that created confusion for no reason. You can have it go clockwise. Like, there's no reason for it to go counterclockwise. I like that it pointed at the boards. It would add an extra die. When we went there, I think that was really fun. I don't really like that moving your shaman is a whole other turn. I don't think it necessarily needed to be that. I think there could have been some restrictions to where if you move your shaman, you can't unlock your dice. I think if you move your shaman, you have to, if you do choose to, move a die after that as well. But yeah, that's my only caveat, is I think having it be its own entire action, you can't do anything else, was a little too restrictive, and then having it go counterclockwise opposite of the dice was just added confusion that wasn't needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the final module is module 9. I thought there was 10. There's only 9. Actually, our 10th was card drafting. That's how I counted it. Was called Expanding the Empire. So this is where you actually have a whole separate empire board here that comes into play, where you get 10 warriors. You're going to help the warriors move across the game board, where you can unlock different benefits by building houses there, or just get VP.
Yep.
To me, this module is unnecessary. It's too much. Where you're already focusing on this game board. You're doing resource management, you're building the pyramid, you're doing decorations, you're going up temple tracks. This is a whole nother thing to focus on, and it was one of the number 6 board on the game board. You'd go to number 6, you'd move warriors up here. We barely ever did this because there was so many other things to focus on. To do this is a thing where you kind of also want all the players involved, because you need other players to help you move your warriors further down the track, unless you just do board 6 over and over and over again. So to me, this is a module where if you're going to add it in, add only this one in without all the other special boards. But I just don't think it's necessary.
I disagree. I like this a lot, actually. So if it was an addition on top of having the number 6 board, instead of replacing the number 6 board, then I would agree. But the fact that it replaces what the number 6 board does entirely, I think it's actually very beneficial to have this. And it makes this one more interesting. Because now instead of just building houses, now there's a strategic element to, okay, I need to move my people down. You don't have to build a house now. You can just go there to move people through. And you can strategically position your people and then go there and build a house and do that sort of thing. But I agree that if you're going to do this, that you don't include a bunch of the other ones. Like, make this like, don't include the 4th board for the temple or the shamans. Like, make this your big one. This should be the one thing that you're doing to focus on. So that way you are getting the maximum benefit of everyone doing this, like you said. You don't need everyone to do this. Like, people can still focus on just the pyramid if they want to. And you have enough warriors to push your people down. And you don't have, like I said, you don't have to build. So one of the things when you build, your warrior comes off. And having your warrior on gives you points down here. So you kind of want to keep some on. But it would be more interesting if everyone was doing that. But in general, in all of our games, we didn't really focus on board number 6 regardless. So it wasn't because we included this. Just in both the games we played, number 6 just wasn't one of the more interesting things that we focused on to go up the Valley of the Dead, or whatever it's called.
Avenue of the Dead.
Avenue of the Dead. So I do like this, but I agree. If you're going to do this, make this your main module you're including. And that's all the modules, right?
Yeah, that's it. So, and the last thing they have in the game book, we're not going to go over. They do have expert challenges, so they have ways you can set up the boards very specifically to different like scenario types. Feel free to look through those and see if you want to try it out.
Well, that's what I was going to mention is, in general, if you're just freehanding a module, choose one main one to stick with. I think you can always include the Obsidian one.
Which is number 6, I think.
Yeah, the Obsidian one, the number 1 board where you have the tokens down, and then the decorations board, I think you can always include. Because they don't really add too much, and they don't take away from the other modules. But after that, really choose one module to focus on. I would even say not to choose this one and the priest module. Yeah. I wouldn't even choose the priest module and the 4th temple module either.
Yeah, I agree.
Those are more major. Let those be their own thing and really make that the main one you want to include. But that Expert Challenges book includes specific combinations of modules and specific priest combinations with that as well to try and counteract this randomness of unbalanced nature. So we did not check that out, so we can't give our thoughts on that. But it does interest me to see how they've play tested their game to say, oh, you know what? If you do this module and this module with this priest and this priest and this priest, golden. So I think that would be beneficial. At some point, we'll definitely give that a shot. We don't know if we'll do it on camera. I know this will come out at some point again for sure for us. But yeah, recommendation, one main module, and check out the expert challenges to see what that's about.
Yep.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this review of Teotihuacan City of Gods. I always want to say City of the Gods. City of Gods, the deluxe master set by Board and Dice. Thank you for joining us here at Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald.
I'm Board.
And we will see you
in our worker placement month here in February.
Yeah!